Steelers Browns tonight, Monday Night Football. We have a big time breakdown today on the show, and I want to welcome everybody back here to Mike Drop Sports. The Pittsburgh Steelers came out last week with a horrible performance. The offense looked subpar, pedestrian, like they didn't even have a plan. Then you have the defense who totally got dismantled by Brock Purdy and company. And I'm going to blame partially that on the offense, not being able to move the football at all, not being able to possess the football at all. Also, I want to blame a little bit of that on the special teams group, the punt team in particular, where Presley Harvin gave that unit, that San Francisco offense, the ability to be able to start midfield to into Steelers territory on a consistent basis, especially in those first couple drives where they were set up with perfect field position. So what do the Steelers need to do in order to be able to redeem themselves and get back on track tonight against Cleveland on the national stage? There's so many variables considering there's a lot of injuries on the Steelers side. The injury bug has totally got a hold of this Pittsburgh Steelers team. You have Cam Hayward, Deontay Johnson, Chuks Okorafor. The list goes on. So many injuries for this Pittsburgh Steelers team in pivotal positions. So how do the Steelers fix this tonight? Well, one big thing is being able to control what they do the worst and what they let up the most. And that is being spread out as a defense and getting that middle of the field just ate up, getting tore up in the middle of the field. That is their big issue, and they have to be able to fix that while still being able to maintain a solid run defense against Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb is one of the best running backs in the NFL, and he can run, and he's going to get his. But you have to limit his opportunities, and you have to force the Browns into passing situations, and you have to be able to control that middle of the field because that's where they get destroyed. Once they get spread out, they're toast, man. And I'm not sure this has been a problem for a while. And I'm hoping maybe you can have some of these safeties get down and help out a little bit and be able to cause some turnovers like we've seen in the past, especially last year in the final week of the season, to where you had KZ, Levi Wallace, guys like that get interceptions and be able to neutralize Deshaun Watson in those pass games or passings across the middle of the field. And that's what you need to be able to do tonight. And you need to have that same type of game plan. Pressure Deshaun Watson, making him uncomfortable, forcing him to make errant throws, and being able to defend those middle of the field passes. Amari Cooper is possibly injured and possibly out for the Cleveland Browns, which could be big for the Pittsburgh Steelers considering I don't feel like their wide receiver core is as deep as it needs to be whenever you lose a guy like Amari Cooper. So the Steelers could get an advantage there, but you're going to still have to control one major factor, and that is David Njoku. He has to be controlled because I think these tight end groupings for both teams are going to prove to be very pivotal in this matchup. Njoku especially, the Steelers have to be able to match up against him because he could go off for many yards and a couple touchdowns real quick and in a hurry. And you couple that with a guy like Nick Chubb who could eat up 100, 125 yards really quick, you got trouble, and it spells trouble for the Steelers. And you have to be able to apply pressure to Deshaun Watson, make him have some happy feet, and get him on the move, and hopefully be able to corral him and not let him use his athleticism to run the football either. So there's several factors for that Pittsburgh Steelers defense. You have to have Pat P play a better game. You have to have more involvement of Joey Porter Jr. to be able to control more. Maybe he can match up well with David Njoku. Players of that nature, you're just going to have to find. I'm not saying that's what has to happen, but you have to find somebody to be able to match up with David Njoku, and you have to find somebody that is able to control that tight end, and especially across the middle of the field. So also, last week, that defense, I felt like only put pressure from one guy, and that was TJ Watt. You have to be able to put pressure from other places. You have to have contributions from that defensive front. Alex Highsmith has to have a better game. He has to be able to apply more pressure to the quarterback. And that is going to be a big key also, is those outside linebackers controlling the edge, controlling the pressure, and being able to force the tempo a little bit for the defense, being able to force those sacks and those hurries, and keeping Deshaun Watson off schedule, forcing him into passing downs so you don't allow a guy like Nick Chubb to be able to eat and eat and eat, because that's where you're going to fail and fail big. So moving on from the defense, we know the Steelers defense, what they have to do. It's very elementary at this point. It's right in your face. We see exactly what they have to do. Moving over to that offensive side of the football, Kenny Pickett has to come out and have a better game, guys. He cannot play the way he did. Hopefully his head's straight. Hopefully he's not holding that loss in. Hopefully he has a quick memory and gets rid of it, dumps that memory, and totally comes out singularly focused on being able to utilize his tight end grouping. I think that's going to be the most important thing for Kenny Pickett, utilizing those tight ends, but also allowing that run game to get going, to be able to use a little bit of the play action pass, to utilize the tight end grouping, come out with some heavy sets, be able to control the line of scrimmage, control the time of possession, limit the snaps to where Chubb and then Njoku can beat you. So that is going to be one of the better defenses for the Steelers, is the Steelers offense. They have to come out in some bigger groupings and being able to control that line and force Najee Harris and Jalen Warren down their throat, down the defense's throat for the Cleveland Browns. You have to be able to do that. But you have to be able to utilize those tight ends in blocking in the run game and being able to pass with them. So you have to become versatile in that aspect. And you have to get somebody like Darnell Washington some targets, even more for Connor Hayward. You have to be able to make sure Pat Freiermuth is even healthy. Is he healthy enough? Or can he just at least be out there as a decoy to where the defense has to respect him in a 2 tight end, 3 tight end set? Those are going to be big things. And Kenny has to utilize those tight ends tonight and that run game. Is George Pickens injured? I know he popped up late in the week on the injury report. So are we going to have the services of a guy like George Pickens? Or is it going to be a heavy dose of Allen Robinson, Calvin Austin, Gunnar Olszewski? But I think if you're out a George Pickens, the tight end group becomes even more important for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And that's where Kenny has to put his focus. And you have to be able to, if you're Matt Canada, utilize the proper groupings, the proper personnel groupings to be able to utilize those tight ends in the way that they should be. And you have to become a hard-nosed physical football team tonight because, guys, this is an AFC North matchup. And that's what the AFC North has grown to be, a hard physical football game. And that's what type of game you need to play tonight. And I think if you do those things, utilize the tight ends, utilize the running game, and the offensive line have a way better game than it did, I think you could possibly open up some things down the field for a guy like a Calvin Austin if George Pickens plays. Those things. Also, on the offensive line front, you have a guy like Broderick Jones with the injury to Chuks Okorafor, who's probably going to get his first start tonight on Monday Night Football against Cleveland Browns. And he's probably going to be playing the right tackle position, not the left tackle position. And I think that's to ensure continuity and not have too much change to where guy gets injured, you move the left tackle over to the right tackle, insert the new guy, insert the rookie. I don't think the Steelers want to go through all that. So they're just going to let Broderick get that start at the right tackle position and allow him to get his feet wet in the NFL and not have to face like a Myles Garrett or players of that nature. So that offensive line has to be better, guys, has to be better. And it's going to be a big key to this game. And there's just so many variables with that tight end grouping for both sides of the football and the run game for both sides of the football. And it makes you think that they both want to play the same style of football tonight, considering the injuries that the Browns have and the Steelers have. The Browns had a good showing against the Cincinnati Bengals, but the Bengals look like turds to me, man, this year so far, if any indication of how they played in week 1 and against the Baltimore Ravens yesterday, because they had chances to win that game yesterday. So is it a big indicator of what the Browns look like with their win in week 1 against the Bengals? I know week 1 is a fluky thing and the ball can roll anyway. So tonight we're really going to get to see what these teams are. Both teams are really truly made of. And it's going to be a big game for both of them, especially in the AFC North standings. It's a divisional football game. So I want to wrap this up I want to make sure that we're all understanding of what the keys to victory were for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that's utilizing the tight end grouping, that's utilizing the run game, allowing possibly to open up that pass game once you're able to establish those two things. But I think you need a heavy dose of those two things early. And I think that it's going to be for the same thing for the Cleveland Browns. Run game, tight ends. I think it's the same thing. So the team that's able to establish that first is going to have the upper hand in this football game. So pay attention to those things from both sides of the football. Again, I want the defense to be able to control the middle of the football field and not allow those comeback, easy pitch and catch. You can't allow that. The defense has to be able to secure that and start to lock that down. And I think that involves more play from a guy like Joey Porter Jr. I think that involves Patrick Peterson, and he has to be a little bit more exotic and a little more eccentric in what he does and utilize him in how we all thought he was going to be used in different roles. And I think that's how he thought he was going to be used, but he was just a straight up corner last week. And I think he needs to be shuffled into the slot, match up on some different guys. And the Steelers defense has to find an answer for David Njoku. We know Nick Chubb's going to get his, but you have to limit him to 100 or less. You can't let him get up in that 125, 140, 150 range, because that means that the Steelers are going to lose this football game. So that's the keys for the Steelers to win. And I think it's going to be a big game, and I think it's going to be a hard-hitting game. And I think the Steelers will pull this one out 24-21. I think the Steelers get the win, improve to 1-1, knock the Browns down to 1-1, to where you're making this AFC North division look pretty damn tough. And it's going to be a hard battle down the road. So I think tonight the Steelers find their mojo, get the tight ends involved, get that running game involved. And if not, I think this could spell the end of Matt Canada, because I don't think Kenny Pickett's going to be the one to get the out. I think it would be Matt Canada, because he seems to be the common denominator in all this. And I had high hopes for him, and I had high expectations because I thought that he had evolved a little bit. So we'll see. I don't want to jump the gun just yet because it was only one game. So we'll see after tonight. I think we're going to have a clearer picture of what this Steelers team is all about. So, guys, I appreciate you again for watching. Until next time, peace.